Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Namaskar. So it's been a long while since I've updated a video on YouTube. My life has taken very unexpected and interesting directions, and I've just been taking the time to process various insights and realizations. Besides that, some of you may have listened to a previous video where I explained I was also working on a music project, and that's been a 2-year project of working in development, because I've been doing everything in this project from its genesis, its original idea, to the recording, the writing, the mixing, but not the mastering, which is currently under process. So the combination of those two facts have led me to be a little bit disconnected from social media, but Facebook, I still respond and I reply there. So today I was inspired actually to create a video, because very lately I actually was going through, and I'm still am actually, recovering from COVID. My wife got it a short while ago, and then I got it. Thankfully, the symptoms were light, some gastrointestinal issues, random skin reactions that would appear and then disappear very at unpredictable times. Thankfully, none of the respiratory disorders. But I was also stumbled into a conversation with somebody related to COVID. And this person said, screw the masks, screw social distancing. I trust the Lord. The Lord will protect me from COVID. And besides, my immune system is powerful enough to handle COVID, which is an irrational assumption, because nobody really knows how you're going to respond to the virus unless you're first infected. So I started speaking with this person, and it led me down this track that, okay, so let's dissect this. This is really important to put one's belief systems under the microscope. No matter how strong your conviction may seem, no matter how convincing the belief system may be, nevertheless to hold it under a microscope. Because unless there is thorough inquiry and investigation, especially with a lot of doubt, knowing that you could be very well wrong and deceived by your own mental projections, then it's all too easy to go off track with even compelling logic. But even compelling logic doesn't have to have any roots in reality. Hence, in mathematics, it's not enough to just have mathematical equations. In the realm of science, just to work with mathematical equations is purely theoretical work. Only when these equations are given to the hands of experimentalists, they are the people who will, through a systematic method, be able to tell the difference. Is this truth or untruth? So let us inquire into a belief system of fatalism. This is a kind of fatalism, to state that everything in the universe is happening according to the Lord's will, and therefore I can just trust in the power of the Lord to take care of my life, which is a most subtle way of absolving yourself of responsibility. So, look throughout history. Where was the Lord when Jews were being slaughtered at the Holocaust during the World War? How many of them must have been pleading and begging for their lives? Yet they were all slaughtered mercilessly. How many people today are dying from COVID during this pandemic? Many of them perhaps believing passionately in God, and yet their lives are extinguished. So you're willing to cling to a belief that absolves responsibility, where the Lord doesn't even have enough compassion to raise a finger to help you, and yet you're willing to die for your beliefs. So, this is once again the phantoms of confirmation bias. Being a seeker is a whole way of life. It's hard to recognize what one's blind spots are, but with a beginner's mind, you are constantly awake to the fact that indeed you could be wrong, and indeed you may be misled by your own mental projections. So, doubt is a very important element to keep the compulsions of one's ego in check. Ego is instinctively driven to self-preservation. So hence, it's a self-preservation bias. With self-preservation bias, how will you be awake to the realities of life, the realities of the cosmos? Everything will be filtered through the lens of one's identifications. And unfortunately, it's amazing how something like a simple virus can create such vast division in the world and has been highly politicized. So this pandemic has really revealed to me how humanity is acting under pressure, and it doesn't look good. It does not look good. We need to get our act together, and a good starting point is to begin to, it's complicated. The solution is complicated because when it comes to social transformation, every individual must take up the responsibility of inquiring into themselves, and not only inquiring into themselves, but having the courage to continue to move forward, even though perhaps in the meantime one's inquiries may not produce direct fruit. So immense patience, humility, mindfulness, concentration, and yet understandably, people are in self-preservation mode because they fear for their health and they fear for their lives. And we have compelling evidence, okay? I know some people who might listen to this may be giving in to the conspiracy theories about COVID or Bill Gates or any of that. But let me remind you about something. We have been through a similar position before. This is known to most of you, I'm sure. The Spanish flu of 1918. Do you think what we're experiencing today is so radically different? At that time, there was also fear of vaccines, vaccine hesitancy. Even vaccines weren't even widely available. So sure, that's one difference. But businesses were also crippled. Resistance to wearing masks among certain people. Distrust in the government, believing that they're involved in some evil mastermind scheme to control people. And then as cases went down, eventually all the restrictions were uplifted and life continued. During times of fear and anxiety, it's very common to allow your neurosis to control you and not to be able to distinguish between reality and your own drive for self-preservation, especially when it's covered up by layers and layers of beliefs, which are really rather disconnected from reality. So, during this pandemic, if you have not seized the opportunity for self-knowledge, I mean, this is a rare opportunity, especially in a place like Canada. I don't know, it's in other countries. Um, Not all governments are giving financial support for their citizens, but Canada, what a luxury, giving $2,000 per month to help you with your COVID relief, and yet still people are not um, taking advantage of this situation because of a heap of fear and anxiety. Our lives have changed rather radically over the last year and a half or so. So these are the trials of tribulations which remind me of similar trials and tribulations when it comes to the inner life. And there's only one quality, which is a vehicle that's reliable, that will carry you through these trials and tribulations, which is to learn an equanimity of the mind, which is not affected by pleasant or unpleasant experience. This can only be learned through self-observation. Now, this crisis that we're going through is, thankfully, it's manageable, but there could be other crises in store in the future which are not collectively so easy to manage. What about climate change? We don't take care of the climate. We will cross a point of no return, which no human activity is probably going to reverse, unless maybe some surprising innovative technologies are developed. But so far, the options for overcoming this are getting narrower and narrower and narrower. What are we going to do about widespread psychological and mental illness and disorder? In the United States now, you have millions of people who are believing they're believing that their election was stolen. Okay? I don't want to make commentary about whether the election was stolen or not stolen, because I don't want to turn this video into something political. But one thing that's undeniable to me is, regardless of those positions, that right now there's millions of people in the United States who are suffering from extreme neurosis and paranoia. And that's driving their behavior. Hence, the attraction to these conspiracy theories and so on. Not that there cannot be elements of truth to certain conspiracy theories, okay? To those of you who might be complaining, oh, Amir, he's criticizing conspiracy theories. Okay, I'll be fair. Rarely do some conspiracy theories manage to make the transition from mere theory to established fact. And usually when they do, it's because there has been a common consensus of truth that is arrived at through peer review and scientific investigation. Rarely has this ever happened in the realm of conspiracy theories. And even if certain conspiracy theories are true, let's, for sake of argument, say some of these conspiracy theories are true. And that's still not enough in terms of inquiry. You need to look into how do you relate to the conspiracy theory, even if it's true, and what internal qualities does it provoke within you. If some idea is true, but it provokes hatred and anger and violence, then some healing needs to take place. So, I would really like to emphasize this, that Thankfully, our society still has enough strength to preserve itself, and probably will for a very long time. I don't mean to be fear-mongering. My intention is not to do any fear-mongering, but to point towards the fact that this pandemic is an example of how our fragilities can be exposed when we are all collectively facing through a crisis. So, how will humanity as a species confront future crises with so much division? So I really hope that at some point, leaders who are involved in economic and political fields and who make decisions that influence millions of people's lives on the planet will start to consider the immense urgency. And this, it sounds almost silly to say because you almost never hear it, but it's so important. The immense urgency of self-knowledge, of this internal disease of egotism and extreme possessiveness, which is eating away at one's better instincts. So everyone, I invite you to contemplate on these ideas. Please take these ideas in because they are relevant to the inner life. Even if we don't go through any crisis, this basic skill is essential. An equanimity that is unaffected by the dualities of pleasant and unpleasant experience. So, everyone, I hope that during this difficult time that you can absorb some of these messages and take them to heart, because I've seen that when crises fall away, people become too satisfied and they just continue with life as if nothing has happened. How many crises need to take place before we start focusing on the essentials of human well-being? So, on that note, everyone, you have my blessings. Take care of yourselves, stay safe, and namaskar.